My name is Laurel Carlson. I'm currently 60 years old, but in my mid-20s I was diagnosed with mycosis fungoides, now known as cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, at a very kind of pivotal time in my life, newly married, planning to start a family, and then learning that perhaps I had a death sentence and was maybe not going to have the life that I thought I was going to have at that point in time. When I was first diagnosed, the doctor really did not know much about the disease. It was very unfamiliar, except that he did know that something looked odd to him, so he decided to take a biopsy. When the biopsy results came back, his first response was, "I really don't know how to treat this. You really need to find someone else. But I've heard they use light." So he had a very old, I will even put it in the category of antique light that probably was used in the 60s and 70s to burn acne off of teenagers' faces. And he started treating me with that. There was nothing scientific about it. Sometimes I thought I was going to get electrocuted because I could see that the cord was frayed. And like I said, there was no covering of other parts of my body that may have been, exposed inadvertently. It was extremely primitive. That's the best word I can use for it. But he did encourage me to get a second opinion. I went to a major institution then, Johns Hopkins University, which, although they had a dermatology department, they also were pretty unfamiliar with the disease. So all they said was, "Yep, that's what you got." And yeah, we would probably say, "Light sounds good." So then my quest became finding a doctor with a light box. I had been told that was what I needed to look for. Say a very typical kind of procedure would be for me to call up a doctor, do you have a light box? Yes or no? Do you take insurance? XYZ. And I went through probably 5 or 6 doctors in the course of 20 years, each time just looking for a light box. I was very, very lucky that the light box always worked for me. And so I really never had to go out looking for anything else. And that kind of goes into a whole nother realm of information that, that I was basically living with a disease that could not be discussed because no one understood, and because I wasn't having conventional treatment. I wasn't having chemotherapy or radiation or surgery, and I did not lose my hair. So to tell someone that I had a cancer was, almost embarrassing, because it didn't fit any of the typical stereotypes that people had of someone with cancer. Within my family, there have been some very serious cancers. I've recently learned that the BRCA2 breast cancer gene is in my family. I fortunately do not have that, but I've had numerous family members have breast cancer and ovarian cancer, which are, of course, very serious cancers. So sometimes mine has almost seemed, frivolous compared to theirs, because mine has been under control for so many years by a seemingly very simple treatment of becoming tan. The thing that I think is interesting about the evolution of this disease is certainly the evolution of treatment options, but if you listen to specialists from different parts of the country, you will find that each one of them has a different regimen. One will use nitrogen mustard, another will use light box. There are steroids, and there are, photophoresis using a light box, and clinical trials with new drugs all the time. So I would say now it's sort of like, almost like an explosion compared to, 30 years ago, when I was told, well, we think they're using light for it. No two specialists seem to treat, a person the exact same way. But I guess the good part is that there are options. And so if option A doesn't work, then there's option B. And I think that is able to give more inspiration to people, or a little bit more reassurance that there are other options. With me, like I said, if the light had not worked 30-some years ago, I'm not sure what my other options would have been. And I'm not sure that the medical community could have offered me a lot of other options. At the time I was diagnosed, no one could give me any guarantee of quality of life, length of life, or anything. When, I would ask, okay, I'm 28 years old, should I consider getting pregnant, or am I risking, having, creating orphans? They couldn't give me any indication. There was no guarantee. There was no prognosis. One doctor said, we think a lot more people have it than we actually ever see, which makes us think that sometimes people just die with it, not of it. And that was a phrase that I heard, early on, but there were no statistics. And the only literature that was available then, because the internet did not exist, were textbooks. When the internet suddenly was able to show me other patients and research that was being done, and the listserv where patients were able to talk to each other, it was an enormous revelation. It was very motivational. It was extremely gratifying, to finally meet, even if it's only virtually, someone who had the same disease as me. Because essentially I felt almost like a freak. Because all they could say was, well, there's not many people that have it, and we don't really know much about it. So obviously I was an oddity of some sort. No one I ever known had it, and the 20 years or so before I did meet someone that had it, it was like living a secret life. I think that the most important thing that a newly diagnosed patient needs to know is that it is not a life sentence. And that's what many of us were told 20 and 30 years ago. Today, there are so many treatment options. There are specialists in almost every major city in the country, and someone somewhere will be able to give you the help that you need. And more importantly, you can listen to people like me who've had the disease for over 30 years and tell you it's possible to survive, it's possible to have a meaningful life, and just deal with the disease. It becomes part of you. It is your life, and it does affect your lifestyle to a certain degree, but it is possible to survive with this cancer. The CLF two-day events are phenomenal, and people that attend them are just so grateful to have all this information brought to them in one place. One of the very important parts is the expertise that is here to share their knowledge and to answer questions. But I think the other really big part of it is patients talking to patients and caregivers talking to caregivers, where people are able to share their experiences, commiserate, motivate, whatever. They are somehow providing the support that we can only get from each other. This is a congregation of people with various forms of the disease from different parts of the country. So there's a lot of things they don't have in common. But the one thing they have in common is that they have a disease that is frequently misdiagnosed, definitely misunderstood, and sometimes it's mistreated when it's not understood all of the implications that the disease has. So I think that being able to come together and share your experiences to motivate, and then connections are made that are kept. The two-day event that we had last year, I witnessed numerous people exchanging phone numbers and email addresses because their intent was to keep in contact with each other and provide the support and the reassurance and the camaraderie of having a common disease or somehow having this disease affect your life, whether it's you or a family member.